Welcome to the Rotary Time Show, a public service program presented by Rotary District 7610, Virginia. On our programs, we talk with Rotarians and community leaders and discuss Rotary International and how each level helps local, national, and world communities. I'm your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson from the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. On today's segment, we are thrilled to welcome a distinguished guest, the new governor of 7610 Virginia, Amelia Stansell, for the 2024-25 Rotary year. DG Amelia has had an impactful journey through Rotary, serving in various leadership roles and making a significant contribution to her local club, which is the Warrenton Club, and the broader Rotary community. We are honored to have her here today to share how she plans to advance Rotary's mission of creating lasting change during her tenure. Welcome, Amelia, to the Rotary Time Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, and I know we're excited to have you as you've just come off a very successful district conference, which was well attended and well received. So thank you on behalf of the Rotary community for your efforts with 7620, the two joint efforts. So thank you. Let's get started by you briefly sharing with our audience a little bit about yourself. Amelia, your life before Rotary.
Was there life before Rotary? I don't remember if there was. Allegedly, there was a life before Rotary. I grew up out in Washington State on a dairy farm and grew up in a family that always instilled in me the need to serve. And so whether it was watching my parents through PTA or 4-H or the school board and all the different things, I always was raised that be the change you want to see in the world, that if you want it to be a better place, you have to be a participant. So I said, all right. And as an adult, got really involved in junior league and other organizations kind of throughout life. And then when I moved here from Idaho in 2006, I was really looking for a way to give back to the community. And my boss at the time invited me to his Rotary Club. He said, you should join my Rotary Club. I said, great, other than you just said it was your club. So I went out and found my own club and found the Gainesville Haymarket Rotary Club. And I was brand new to the community and a young Rotarian at the time at 28 years old, and just fell in love with an organization. So I was a banker at the time doing commercial banking, and it was great for my career. It gave me a lot of opportunities to be able to develop my leadership skills and public speaking and just make friends and family that I probably would have never had if it would have just been left up to me on my own, just out in the world. So I'm just feel really blessed to have an organization like this to work with.
I said you've had a very impactful leadership journey. So we want to thank you for stepping up and being appointed our leader as you guide us through the new Rotary, the future of Rotary. Let's stop now and talk about the role of the district governor. What would be your definition of the role and responsibilities of the district governor?
It's a good question. It's one that you think you know, and then July 1 comes. It's kind of like that quote from Mike Tyson that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It feels a little bit of that with Rotary, but a large part of what I do is coaching and development. So it's working with the 52 presidents of our clubs here across the Northern and Central Virginia to help them have the most impactful, successful years that they can have with their clubs. It's also sometimes having to do a little governance guiding and things. It's cheering everybody on. It's celebrating the awards and helping pick people up when they end up in the ashes and in the dust. And it's a little bit of all of those things, but it's a real honor to be able to do this for a year.
Yeah, and you have a theme, and I understand these are done annually. And your theme also highlights the direction that you want to see us go. What's the theme for this year? Tell us what it means.
Yeah, so there's actually, it's kind of interesting. We actually have two themes this year. Interestingly enough, the Rotary International theme is to share, well, it's the magic of Rotary, and it's share the magic of Rotary or unlock the magic of Rotary or unleash the magic of Rotary. However, we want to help people understand and take that out to inspire our Rotarians to go share it with the world. And what we talk about is when our Rotary International president rolled it out to us, she talked about that the magic of Rotary isn't a fancy wand, it isn't fancy words, that it's really, the magic of Rotary is every project that we complete, it's every dollar we give to our foundation to have more impact, is every new member that we bring into the organization, that magic of Rotary is each of our members and what happens inside our clubs. Then we have a second theme that kind of goes together with it. It also came from our Rotary International president in 2020, must have been 22. We were at our district governor nominee training seminar, Gannett's, in Baltimore. And as class captain, I was asked to help come up with our theme for our zone class. And so what I said was, rather than coming up with a theme for it, let's just listen to our, at that time, Rotary International president nominee, who's now president, and I'm district governor now, to hear what she had to say. And she talked about a few things that I thought were really impactful that turned into a bigger theme. So she had come in and she talked about that when she was district governor, she had a mirror that she would hold up that had a little yellow dot, gold dot on it. And she would carry it around and hold it up to each person in her district governor visits at the meetings. Like, Deborah, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Amelia, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, to each person. And that really resonated with me, they're exactly where they're supposed to be at that meeting. They're where they're supposed to be in their club. They're their leader that their community needs them to have to solve the problems of today and tomorrow. And that really stuck with me. And then she also talked about that as leaders, we were supposed to help develop our clubs to be irresistible, which is kind of a funny word to me, to say the word irresistible in one of your clubs or your Rotarians to be irresistible. Kind of makes you think of that Robert Palmer Simply Irresistible song, which we won't go there, but it does get you to kind of think about it, right? And so talk about, how do you make your club so irresistible that your members always want to be there, that when the community has a need, that the first place they call is their Rotary Club, and then they want to come serve at the Rotary Club, that it's just truly irresistible to be part of. And then she also talked about that when she was, when she's president for a year and district governor for a year, and some of our assistant governors are assistant governor for up to 3 years, that we have defined periods of time that we're in a leadership role that we have the honor to lead. But first and foremost, and at the end of every day, we're first a member of our local club, and that we're called to lead not from the front and to have it being about ego, but really it being about leading from inside and it being about the small I. So when we put it all together as a class, we had irresistible, imagine the word irresistible typed out, with a yellow dot over that middle I that went right over our heart, that we're right there where we're supposed to be, in the middle, leading from the center. And it all tied together. So when we brought this out to our class and out to the world, essentially through our Rotary world, every class out of the 529 districts around the world picked that up as their class theme as well. So it's kind of we have a kind of a dual theme this year, which is kind of fun because it's also the last year of annual themes for Rotary International for our Magic of Rotary. So it's kind of funny that we have two.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sounds wonderful. But I like it because it speaks to blooming where you're planted. Wherever you are or wherever you're called to be, as you just pointed out, that's where your leadership journey should either re-emerge or rewind or whatever, but you kind of get it going over again and again and again. It's almost like continuous improvement, right?
Yeah,
we just keep improving on what we have. So, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of our members might have wondered, well, I just saw another theme last year, why did it change? But you just shared why that happened. DG Amelia, you're part of a 3-year plan, succession plan with the district, in which you all had a process in place that each DG would come through and you would continue to build on the changes that you wanted to see the district have, as well as to, bring in your new thinking of how you want to see things happen. What part of it, or where are you all in that 3-year cycle?
Well, it's a constant 3-year cycle. So it's kind of interesting as we were talking about, as we're putting everything together, that for so long, Rotary leadership, because most of the time it's 1 year, whether you're president of the club or you're Rotary International president or district governor, it's usually 1 year at a time. It looked like a series of sprints, and like you were constantly sprinting a marathon, but it was a series of sprints versus it being a sprint relay marathon. That's a thing where like you're constantly handing it off and you're part of that team approach. And so we really approached it with our district several years ago. It didn't start this year, But really, in the pre-COVID time, we started with this continuity planning and saying, okay, we need to have year to year an ongoing thread that goes throughout. Yeah, we get to be our own individual person that year, but we have this constant leadership. So I would say we're right in the middle of it, and we're always hopefully going to be right in the middle of it, that we're never at the end of that relay marathon, that it just goes forever. It is an endurance marathon. That next year I'll hand off to Ravi, who's our district governor elect this year. Then she'll hand off to Peter as nominee, and he'll hand off to whoever's after him when we select that person this November. Because we plan 3 years out at a time, we constantly know in December we'll know actually 3.5 years out who that next leader will be. So we constantly move it forward as a team, and it should never be again a start, stop.
Well, will you have specific priorities that you will have in place that are measurable as you move through those 3 years?
Yeah, so big one, obviously, we're a membership organization. First and foremost, everybody that's a Rotarian is a member of Rotary. So we measure based on numbers. I'm a banker as my background. So looking at how many members we have is one measurement. And it's not just about bringing in new members. It's about engaging our existing members and enhancing that experience for them so they want to stay participating and they find fulfillment in what they're doing. Right now, we're just under 2,000 members as a district. We used to be over 2,000 in a pre-COVID world. My goal this year, my hope this year is to be over 2,000, not because it's about the individual member, but it's about the amount of impact we can have with having more hands to do more work, to solve more problems in our community. So that's one of the big things that we're working on. Along with that is having more clubs. We've seen clubs consolidate down over time. Just through COVID, you lost people who moved or retired or passed away or just disengaged. And so we've seen clubs that have struggled. So helping them combine together, whether merging together or closing down and those members finding other clubs to go to. We're seeing both of those. So looking at that, but then how do we rebirth? So this year we've already started 2 new clubs that we've chartered, and we have another 6 in the making of new clubs around the district. So that's a way that we measure. We also look at leadership development. It's so important. And like you talked about the continuity and leadership continuity, we have to do a better job of training. So we've done through our President-elect training seminar, which you're actually the incoming chair of, but we bringing in our emerging club leaders, looking at what can we do for second-year presidents, looking at what we can do for our Rotary Leadership Institute and other programs to be able to enhance those leadership skills. And then we also look at, in that, for the additional parts of continual improvements, having our clubs have a strategic plan. They survived COVID. Thank goodness they survived COVID, but how do you, where are they going now? What do they look like in 5 years or 3 years, and how do they plan on getting there? And so helping those clubs define that, and then helping them have the tools that they need to be able to have those stepping stones in place will help them tell the world about themselves, and help them bring in more leaders, more members. So we're excited about that.
Great, it's good to hear. Hold that thought, because we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I want you to talk more about your strategic plan in terms of the welcomingness of our community into our schools. So please stay with us until we come back.
We are this close.
We're this close.
We are this close. Of wanting
To making history.
This close to changing the world.
We are this close.
This close. This close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
Ever again.
This close.
We are this close to ending polio.
Ending polio.
All we need is you.
This close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history at endpolionow.org.
Welcome back to the Rotary Times. We are here talking with Rotarian Amelia Stansell, Governor of District 7610, Virginia, for the 2024-2025 Rotary year. DG Amelia, you just before break talked about your clubs and how you build membership and how some of the initiatives you may put in place over the 3-year cycle to ensure that clubs are being effective and moving forward. How do you, with all the division that our clubs, in areas that our clubs sit in. You know, we've heard some people talk about some conflict, maybe some peace building, all of those things that come out of that. How do you work to ensure that our clubs remain welcoming and just communities for all people?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's something that we've all struggled with, is how do you do that? How do you make your club? And Rotary is a big family, quite frankly. I mean, and families are somewhat dysfunctional at times, even in the best of families. How do you make it so that people feel welcomed, whether they've been there forever or it's their first time walking in? How do you make it so they get the big hug and it's not cliquey? How do you make it so that they feel that they're missed when they're not there? It's all of those things. And so a big part of it is talking about it. When I go out and do my district, my club visits, which this week I have 5 club visits scheduled, is of my 52 that I'll do this year, is talking about how do you make your clubs accessible to everybody? Meaning physically accessible. Can they get in there if they fall and get hurt? Can they, if they have hearing impairment, what can you do to put on closed captioning? Do you ask and demand, quite frankly, that all of your speakers use the microphone and not go, I don't need the mic, I have a loud voice? Well, the person who can't hear can't even tell you that they can't hear because they didn't hear when you asked if you can hear, right? It's those types of things. It's how do you make it so that when you're gone, you're missed, and people pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we missed you, is everything okay? You know, it's those types of things, and reminding people, some of us, you just have to talk about it, remind people that you just have to care, right? And then you talk about this divisive time that we're in, especially during this election year. Man, I saw this coming last year when all of a sudden it hit me about 1.5 years ago. I was going to be DG during an election year in Northern Virginia. Cool. Because we have Northern Virginia and rest of Virginia. We get both Nova and Rova through this district, right? And that can be a challenge. And plus everybody's just so much more heightened with their emotions and their responses to everything. So one of the things I did is I sat down with our district leadership development chair and said, okay, let's lay out a resiliency building series. So we had our first one was on conflict resolution, and it was an all-day workshop with conflict resolution skills that people could get in and build those muscle memory. And then we have another one coming up in December that's called Chats, and it's partnered with the Piedmont Peace Center with their Connecting Humans and Telling Stories, CHATS, to be able to teach people again how to ask questions, how to listen, how to share in a safe environment. Then we'll have our peace conference coming up the first weekend of February on February 1st. And then we'll wrap it up with a program in the spring that if I can get it to come in and I can make everything work, it'll be on microaggressions. It'll be brought on, being done by a trainer from Rotary International that'll come in. And I went through it this summer and it was phenomenal. So if I can get that all organized, that'll be the wrap up of the series. But we said I wanted to have a quarterly series of just helping our members build those muscles and that resiliency, so they have the skills they have when they run into it in their club. But really, they're probably going to run into it in the community and at their Thanksgiving table and everywhere else too, just to have that skill set.
That's amazing, and that's wonderful to hear. You did a series at your district conference just on awareness of mental illness, you know, and how do we strengthen ourselves as individuals. And you mentioned the resiliency there. You mentioned those things that people could do, you know, because we all need it, because for whatever the reason, we can all benefit from a lot of that awareness. So thank you, for that, and I hope that series, I look forward to it. Let me say that. I look forward to being a part of your upcoming series. This probably all has come about as well because of the pandemic. It has changed the role of the district governor and how you operate. What would you say is different about how you're operating now as opposed to the former district governors?
Well, gosh, it's funny is thinking about that. Well, Zoom, for instance, in a pre-COVID world, people didn't have, I mean, we Skyped, maybe a FaceTime, but you certainly weren't going to do a Rotary meeting with it. You weren't going to have this accessibility. So it's good and bad because you're so much more accessible. it's really hard. You talk about the mental health side of it. It's really hard though to draw boundaries because everybody goes, well, it's just a Zoom, just jump on there, you can be on. So you have to be so much more accessible now, but also be able to draw the boundaries for your family and your business and every other way of doing it. I think also some of the other challenges and changes in it beyond that is I think people, again, they're more on edge as a result and probably more sensitive to everything as a result, and so you see more interpersonal issues that pop up in a post-COVID world than you did before. But I think we're also more empathetic. I think we understand and we pay attention to what other people are going through because we've felt it ourselves. I think we do. I think there's good and bad to both sides of it as you go through it.
And that's so true. We think about resiliency and what has to happen. I see you looking up. I hope it's not about to rain on you over there.
No, there's an airplane.
Oh, okay.
It's like buzzing by, and I'm like,
is it going to rain on it? We don't want that to happen.
I don't know what's going on out here.
The District Foundation is critical to the success of any district-wide initiatives. Talk to us about some of the district-wide initiatives that your foundation is engaged in right now.
Oh man, our Rotary Foundation, gosh, I just love our foundation. The amazing things that we do anywhere from this month in October 24th is World Polio Day. So the effort to eradicate polio and being so close to being down to the last two countries, then because of war and conflict, seeing it pop up in places that it was eradicated. So that work that our district is doing and districts around the world to raise funds and to continue supporting frontline healthcare workers in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and now seeing it pop up with Gaza and other places. So that's a big part for us. But then you have projects, we just got done approving our district grants. And so projects with providing literacy in Guatemala, to helping students with scholarships here in the U.S. or providing dictionaries to third graders. There's so many. We've seen water projects putting in wells in Zambia, and we're even looking at a water project here in our own district where we have a place over in Matthews, which is in Middlesex County, which is right here in Virginia, that doesn't have running water. So they have members of their community that drive miles every day to fill up buckets of water to take it home for their families. And we forget that here in Virginia, in such a wealthy, especially in Northern Virginia, in such a wealthy, beautiful area with access to things like water and sanitation, that here in our own state, we struggle with it still. And so our district is working on that to be able to help raise funds and bring in capital from outside of the U.S. with a global grant even. So it's exciting to see.
That's wonderful. And you're right. I was surprised when I heard what was happening in Matthews because one of our club members, our club is a part of the Water Alliance, and they were talking about that. And many of us said we did not even realize it, so we were surprised. So you're absolutely right. We take it for granted that we live in such a rich area. We don't realize sometimes right underneath us, right next door to us, that far from us, these individuals who are struggling. So thank you for bringing that to the attention too of all of our viewing audience who may not know that information as well. What have you enjoyed so far about being DG?
One, approving grants. That was pretty cool to get to go through. Reading the grants and seeing the impact. I think that's something as a general Rotarian, you don't really understand the overall amount of impact that our clubs have on their communities and on the global community. So I think that was really impactful. And then getting to go visit the clubs and seeing that when you visited one Rotary club, you've visited one Rotary club. Every single one is completely different. They have different personalities and different projects, and they're based on the community that they serve and what their needs are. It's really cool to see that, and the big hug that you get, that Rotary hug, and to know that every person in that club, even though we're different, I may have just met them, we all have the same servant's heart. I think is pretty incredible to me.
Yes, it is.
And that just stands out every time.
Oh, thank you. You said that so eloquently. We're about to close out, so final thought. How would you describe the kind of legacy you want to leave?
Oh, the legacy I want to leave. Well, coming out of banking and financial services for a long time, when I'm very fiscally responsible, so I want to make sure that that legacy is that we left it better than we found it when it comes to our financial situation. But also, I'm a governance nerd. So I want to make sure I'm leaving our district and our clubs stronger than when I found them as well. I may not complete the biggest, glitziest projects, but that I leave that we have a written strategic plan, that we have an emergency response plan, that we have a balanced budget, that we have all of these things that will set up future leaders and future club leaders for being stronger and better, and they can build and do the glitzy project. I don't need that to be my legacy. I'd rather leave it, for me, as leaving it stronger.
And you will have touched every one of us because we know you, DG Amelia, the superwoman of District 7610. And we're so delighted that you joined us. And if you could say I saw your kids on stage this weekend, if you could say in one sentence what that meant to you having them up front with you.
Man, if I could do it without crying. I was so proud of my girls going up on stage in front of everyone. They're 10 and 12. And to have them lead everybody in the Pledge of Allegiance, and my youngest remembered to take off her cowboy hat. I was so impressed.
I was too, so thank you for sharing them and the family with us at the conference. So we thank you again for joining us and hope you'll come back at the end of your term and tell us all the great things that you've accomplished.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, you got it. For the Rotary Times program, I am your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson from the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. You're welcome to join us at a Rotary Club in your area, either for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a service project. You can find us at a club near you by just looking us up on the internet. Many of our clubs are conducting meetings virtually or with some form of hybrid approach. You just need to look us up for the details. Remember, your time is our time, and is always time well spent. Please join us for our next program as we continue to celebrate Rotary's 118 years of service above self. Funding for this program is made possible by the generosity of Rotarian Lynn Heinrichs, State Farm Agency, McLean, Virginia.